Welcome back to another mini episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. And I'm your host, David Chambers. I've almost forgotten to say there. I'm not. I'm a men's dating, relationship and intimacy coach. I also help men really step into powerful masculinity, powerful, healthy masculinity that generates connection and love and purpose in their lives. Today I'm going to be talking about something that comes up every so often is around getting back with exes. I think it's one of the most popular questions I get asked through the DM, like, should I get back with my ex? And it's probably going to be quite a short one because I think most of the time we shouldn't, to be honest. Most of the time I see with people, there's a fantasy they have about their past relationship. We have a habit of looking back at things with rose-tinted glasses sometimes and thinking, maybe we shouldn't have broken up, things could be better this time and yada, yada, yada. My belief is actually most of the time, and everyone's different, but this is definitely what I've seen with my clients and myself and my friends, is often we break up for a very good reason. Most people actually break up too late. I did an episode with Robert Glover. We talked about nice guy syndrome. And he talks about being a good picker and a good ender. And I think he's right. Being a good ender is a really important part of relating and relationships, because you've got to know when it's a good time to end the relationship. And often we leave things too long, which, is actually isn't the worst thing unless we leave it ridiculously long, unless you get to the point of where you've left it for years and years where you should have left, or tens of years even. So often we, say for instance, you're in a relationship where your partner is emotionally distant, for instance. And this is not the sort of behaviour you want in a relationship. And it happens after a while. They say they're going to change, and they don't change, and you end the relationship. You probably did the right thing, if that's not what you want in a relationship, right? And this gets onto the first thing I say about if we're going to get back with an ex after some time is, has something changed? Has the thing that caused you to break up, or the things, because often there's multiple things, have those issues disappeared? Have they been resolved? So, for instance, if you're with somebody and they are emotionally distant, right? They're emotionally distant. They withdraw when you try and connect, and all those sorts of things. And that's one thing if they're just like that way, and that's their, I'll call it default way of being, not necessarily natural way of being. But if they do that and they make a concerted effort to, against that default way of being, then, you can have a relationship that can work, especially if they're willing to do the work and look at why they're avoidant, or why they're, emotionally distant. Like myself, my default is to be emotionally distant, but actually I've done a lot of work to overcome that. But if you have a partner who is emotionally distant and, you want to get back with them, if nothing has changed, if they have not changed, right? If they have not shown you to be doing the work to be more emotionally connected and start to face the reasons why they are emotionally distant, then getting back with them is a bad idea. If you've got a partner who, for instance, is very jealous and flies off the handle often, right? And gets angry about the littlest thing, maybe who you're talking to on social media, for instance, or whatever, if that is how they are and that makes you miserable and nothing has changed, unless they've really changed, and when I say change, I don't just mean, they've shown they told you they're not going to do it. That's not change. That's just words. Words are fucking easy, man. I can say some words and, anything. It's like it's consistency, right? So you have to see that the thing that has changed, they say it's changed, it's actually changed, and seen that, right, with your own eyes, and not just once or twice. Another thing to bear into mind is, why do you want to get back with them? Is it because you're lonely? Is it because you haven't met anyone else? Is it because you're afraid you're going to be alone forever? These are bad reasons to get back with somebody, right? And we do it, right? We've all done it. We've all felt lonely and we thought, maybe, that ex is still around, or, let me get back with them. But it's like, once you get back with them, you're not going to be lonely, and then you probably won't want to be with them anymore, right? Again, think about these things. There's a part of you that is really codependent potentially, especially if you suffer from codependency, like that idea of being alone and not having someone to call yours and so forth, that will want to get back with them again, right? So just be really mindful of that. It's like, that's why I often say to people, it's like, learn to be okay being alone. Learn to be happy alone as a single person, because then, the idea of being a lone single person won't feel like you're broken in any way, when you're not with somebody. I think you have to put a special mention in for infidelity inside here, actually, when it comes to getting back with exes, because infidelity happens, and it happens a lot. I tell you as a coach, infidelity happens a lot, right? And I think there's often this baseline idea that if someone's been unfaithful, someone's cheated, it doesn't work. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. I think it's a fucking lie. People make it work. A lot of people make their relationships work after cheating. And I deeply admire that, because I know it's not easy. And I've worked with people that have done that. A really important part of that is wanting to actually forgive and start to put it behind you. Because if you don't want to do that, and meaning if you want to bring it up and throw it at your partner every time they do any small thing, or any time you're upset, that relationship can't work in that way. There comes a point where you just have to stop doing that. You have to be willing to put it behind you. Or if you're not willing to really forgive, and you're always going to be fretting about them doing it again. And obviously infidelity happens in such a myriad of ways. Sometimes people cheat because their partners become really distant from them, and they're not really looking after them emotionally and sexually and stuff like that. Some people cheat because they just make a big mistake. They go out and they do something, and it's a huge mistake, and they deeply regret it. And some people are serial cheaters. It's all very different. So it's all a special mention in there, as I said, around getting back with exes, around cheating is something that can work. But again, you've got to really put it behind you, and you've got to see that the other person who potentially committed the infidelity really wants to move forward, and really wants to create something and then act differently and be different. Is a really important part, right? And the same thing actually goes for lying, because lying can be a tendency that people get into inside of relationships. It's like looking at why someone lied. Because sometimes we lie because we've grown up in environments where telling the truth was painful, or we fear being punished for telling the truth, or we fear being pushed away for telling the truth. So it's like, if that's one of the reasons why your relationship broke down, it's like, how can you start to forge a way in your new recreated relationship where telling the truth, people are accepted for telling the truth, and there's not a shunning and there's not a punishment for that. And that's an important part of things. And I guess the last thing I think I should ask is like, are you acting from fear or love? What is driving you to get back with your ex, right? Is it because you're afraid of something? It could be a myriad of things, as I mentioned before, right? Or is it the love that you have for them and you had with them that's really drawing you back? Because this is a really important thing to look at in our lives, is we act from fear so much. It becomes habitual. It becomes a thing that we always are doing, right? So you have to start to ask yourself the question, am I acting from fear or am I acting from love? And you don't want to be acting from a place of fear when it comes to getting back with an ex-partner, because at some point, fear can only, I believe fear can only drive you so far in life. And we've got to start moving from love and inspiration. It works a lot better. So that's my take. Have I ever tried to get back with an ex? I have tried to do that a few times way back in the past. Actually, and now I tell a lie, I've actually even done it in the not so distant past where I thought about it. So I'm not talking from a place of it never works. I definitely tried it a couple of times, and generally the thing was that nothing had changed. And sometimes that change was me, that nothing had changed with me. So yeah, and it's like, if we're not willing to put behind us the things that have happened in the past, sometimes we got to move forward, and we haven't changed as people, because often we need to shift as people for this relationship to come back together and work. And too often we haven't changed, we haven't done the work, the emotional work to look at why we react, why we are very reactive. This is the sort of work I do with my clients, is like looking at why they're reactive and helping them be less reactive in their relationships, less reactive in dating as well. Because I think ultimately so much of our dysfunction, so much of our problems come down to our reactivity to our own emotions that we feel in the moment, that we have to somehow do something about them, or reactivity to other people, which cause us to say and do things out of habitual patterns and not based on the in-moment experience that we're having. But that's another podcast episode altogether. So yeah, getting back with X. If you listen to this and that's something you're considering, then I hope this has been helpful to you. I think that's it for this evening. As I say, there's no events I've got coming up currently. I'm just doing my one-to-one coaching, group coaching at the moment. So if those are something that are interesting to you, let me know. Just drop me a message through Instagram at @theauthenticman_, or by email hello@theauthenticman.net. But until next episode, which will be a full-length episode, will come out in a few days. Ciao, ciao.